What's going on, guys? This is day 2 of trying to be a data analyst. So I definitely like revamped my resume. Um, Give you kind of like a overview. Something pretty much like all this stuff right here. The biggest thing I got about let me just show the screen actually. Capture. So kind of like my biggest take on the resume revamping was actually, putting the skill set up here and then putting your position and stuff like that. But I think like the key thing that I got out of yesterday while trying to revamp this was that you want to intertwine the tools that you use or the skills that you list into the impact of the business and the role that you had in the business. So basically, me being like a franchise manager, I used Micros POS to generate sales, to get improved sales, and they suggest that pretty much your percentages, um, the type of percentages that you do, whether it's increasing efficiency, whether it's increasing time spent, are you saving the company money, are you making them money, stuff like that. So very specific, like use your tools to intertwine it into your task and what's the impact of your task on the business. So I think that was the biggest thing that I got from the resume revamp that I did um, yesterday. But for me, I didn't use the proper template. I actually used kind of like a default Google template, but I'm going to put that towards the template they gave me. So I got to just do that and send that to them tomorrow. I think the next task kind of do some of the behavioral stuff. Get that ready. Some of the behavioral aspect there. So this is kind of like the template he gave me. I'll just show you my screen. So basically, for anybody who's in tech or whatever, SQL, Python, Java, Airflow, la la la, and then he lists like percentages, profit margin, first month retention, 70, numbers. Reduce 10 hours to 30 minutes for on call. You know what I mean? Like, that was a big thing I got from the resume revamps. Usually, like, a lot of resumes are just telling, I did this for this, but, like, what are the tools you used? What are the percentages? What numbers? What was the impact on the business? Then we get some hard numbers. And if they're not hard numbers, give them ballpark stuff like percentages. You know what I mean? They want it scaled. Want specific tasks, specific tools, scale through numbers, and basically scale through numbers and therefore impact. Like, what did you do to the business? So this was pretty much what I got. This is, and try to be concise about it. Try to leave it at a page. This is pretty much the founder of the company. As you can see, it's highly elaborate. There's a lot of accomplishments in this. There's percentages. There's numbers. There's tools, and so basically the three tools that I need to work on is pretty much SQL. Maybe some data, design, um, and then a little bit of Python, and then whatever, whether it be AWS, um, some of the other stuff, Spark. So these are kind of like, let's go into this. So this is kind of like the classroom. this is. Yeah, this is like everything. 14 modules, special course, Python, automation, Spark, Python, data engineering, real world projects, blah, blah, blah. This is like pretty much a referral program. I mean, I have access to all this stuff here. This is my Slack channel. Basically, these are the coaches, kind of the language experts here. This is my Ohm is my guy, point of POI guy, customer success manager. This is pretty his role. Yeah, so I think I have access to the Google Drive. The bookmark should be up here. My email. Let's see, so today's the 17th. Oh, okay, how to master SQL. So I'm like kind of a day behind. I should make up. I'm off tomorrow, so I should make up a good chunk tomorrow. Say half done. So 3/4. I'm gonna put 3/4 done. So I think behavioral stuff. So let's just check this out. Let's see what he has to say.
Hey, what's up, guys? Recording this for the behavioral questions section. So this is really, really important, man. I think people underestimate how important behavioral questions are. Besides SQL and data modeling, it's probably the most important one. And the thing about behavioral questions is that you're guaranteed to get this on an interview, right? Like I've seen data analysts and data engineer interviews not test on SQL. But I've never, ever, ever seen an interview not get tested on behavioral questions. So, now that I'm actually recording this, I might even move up behavioral questions up in terms of the milestone, because I think that this is actually more important than AWS or Python. And so with that said, again, this might look different depending on when you're watching this module, right? I'm recording this in May, but right here, ebook, you'll see here, right? Behavioral questions, page 63 is the part that I want you to study for the behavioral questions. And so right here, you'll see that I'm referencing the ebook, Ace the Data Engineer Interview, which is right here. You'll have access to that. You click this Google Drive right here, and that will take you to this page right here. And so, again, you should have access to this template from milestone 2 or one of the earlier milestones. But once you get here, you'll really see the most common behavioral questions. And so, for example, all I really did was take the leadership principles from Amazon. For example, one of them is bias for action. And then I took a question that is very commonly asked that falls under this leadership principle. And then this is how I would answer it. It's very, very, very short and sweet. A lot of the mistakes that people make is they just ramble on for 1 or 2 pages, when in reality, when you get to the interview, you actually want to have a conversation with the person that is interviewing you. And so in the behavioral question milestone, what you will also see is you will see a mock interview. And so right here, when you go to behavioral questions, again, right now it's milestone 6. I might move it up, but you'll see a mock interview here. And so watch that so that you kind of get an idea of how you should be answering. The person here that did do this one actually did a very good job. And he, didn't ramble. He basically answered the question in a short, concise manner, and then had a conversation with me. And so he did a really, really good job. So what I want you to do here is I want you to read this section, which is only 2 or 3 pages. This should not take you longer than 10 minutes, but what I really want you to listen to or take away is the STAR method. Okay. So what I want you to do after you read this section and after you watch this video, what I want you to do is then I want you to create a template and share it with me where you take these 4 leadership principles from Amazon and you create your story using the STAR method. So what is the STAR method? The STAR method, again, I describe it here. Really, it's you describing the situation, describing what task was at hand for you, describing the action you ultimately took, and describing the result you took, which led to a quantifiable outcome for your company. It's really that simple. And you can see here, it's 8 lines long. And the nice part about this is that once you do it once for these 4 leadership principles, you never ever have to do it again. And so get it out of the way. I get it. It's annoying. Everybody wants to jump into the SQL questions and, do the sexy part, et cetera, et cetera. I get it. But the behavioral questions are something that's going to come up guaranteed. And so you might as well do it. Share it with me. I'll give you feedback, and then you never have to do it again. And so, again, Amazon leadership principles, right? I know I spelled that wrong, but we go here, right? And then you'll see all the leadership principles here. There's 12 of them. Don't overthink it. Just start with these 4. These 4, and if you want, you can probably do 4 stories, so 1 story under each one, and then we can move it around and even put more leadership principles under each one. So, for example, you might do a disagree and commit here, and for some reason, this one might also be an invent and simplify. And so a lot of people will typically go here and they'll do a story for each one. What I'm saying is do 4 really, really good stories, and then we can put multiple leadership principles under the story. And so 4 really, really good stories will get the job done. And so I'm going to put this, here, Amazon LPs, and that falls under behavioral questions in case you want to see it as well. But again, it's really, really simple, yet it's going to have a massive impact. And it's 1, 2, 3 pages long. Do it right away. Get the behavioral questions out. And that way we can start applying immediately within the first week of this program. And your behavioral questions are already taken care of for the next 3, 4, 5 months, right? So, yeah, let me know if there's any questions. I hope that was short and sweet. And, don't overthink it. And make sure you read this example here for the STAR method. And by the way, I do give a lot of more sample questions and answers in case you have any other questions. And so feel free to kind of take anything there as well. But again, the first 3 pages is all you really need. But all of this should be able to really bring you to the finish line. So yeah, let me know if there's any questions. Get this done, share with me, or else I cannot help you. And then I'll give you comments and feedbacks, and we'll go from there. Awesome. Later.
Nice. Makes sense. Keys, template. Finish mile 3. Book chapter. Oh, the same shit. Oh, it's the mock interview. Oh, damn, that's like 30 minutes, dude. Let's see, let's see, let's see. I don't want to do that now. What did he say? 66. Damn. I gotta, dude, there's a lot of material. Hold on. So he says go 66. Okay. Part 6 behavioral. Okay. So what is he talking about? Resources here. Oh, this one. Oh, Amazon. Oh, leadership purpose. Okay, cool. So, is this the same shit? Yep. So, page 63. Wait, wait. Leadership principle. How long is this video? Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Wait, what? Amazon principles, leadership principles.
This on an actually recording this. I'm so this template from 1 or 2 pages. Idea of how. So list it and share it with me for you. You met here 4 pages long. Here 3 pages is all. Let me know if there's any questions. By the way, 3 pages. Then I want the how I, for example, this page right here. And so again, you should have access to this template from milestone 2 or one of the earlier milestones. But once you get here, you'll really see the most common behavioral questions. And so, for example, all I really did was take the leadership principles from Amazon. For example, one of them is bias for action. And then I took a question that is very commonly asked that falls under this leadership principle. And then this is how I would answer it. It's very, very, very short and sweet. A lot of the mistakes that people make is they just ramble on for 1 or 2 pages, when in reality, when you get to the interview, you actually want to have a conversation with the person that is interviewing you. And so in the behavioral question milestone, what you will also see is you will see a mock interview. And so right here, when you go to behavioral questions, again, right now it's milestone 6. I might move it up, but you'll see a mock interview here. And so watch that so that you kind of get an idea of how you should be answering. The person here that did do this one actually did a very good job. And he, didn't ramble. He basically answered the question in a short, concise manner and then had a conversation with me. And so he did a really, really good job. So what I want you to do here is I want you to read this section, which is only 2 or 3 pages. This should not take you longer than 10 minutes, but what I really want you to listen to or take away is the STAR method. Okay. So what I want you to do after you read this section and after you watch this video, what I want you to do is then I want you to create a template and share it with me where you take these 4 leadership principles from Amazon and you create your story using the STAR method. So what is the STAR method? The STAR method, again, I describe it here. Really, it's you describing the situation, describing what task was at hand for you, describing the action you ultimately took, and describing the result you took, which led to a quantifiable outcome for your company. It's really that simple. And you can see here, it's 8 lines long. And the nice part about this is that once you do it once for these 4 leadership principles, you never ever have to do it again. And so get it out of the way. I get it. It's annoying. Everybody wants to jump into the SQL questions and, do the sexy part, et cetera, et cetera. I get it. But the behavioral questions are something that's going to come up guaranteed. And so you might as well do it. Share it with me. I'll give you feedback, and then you never have to do it again. And so, again, Amazon leadership principles, right? I know I spelled that wrong, but we go here, right? And then you'll see all the leadership principles here. There's 12 of them. Don't overthink it. Just start with these 4. These 4, and if you want, you can probably do 4 stories, so 1 story under each one, and then we can move it around and even put more leadership principles under each one. So, for example, you might do it. You can probably there's 12 of them. Don't overthink it. Just start with these 4.
There's 12.
These 4, and if you want, you can probably do
Holy shit.
4 stories, so 1 story under each one, and then we can move it around and even put more leadership principles under each one. So, for example, you might do a disagree and commit here, and for some reason, this one might also be an invent and simplify. And so a lot of people will typically go here and they'll do a story for each one. What I'm saying is do 4 really, really good stories, and then we can put multiple leadership principles under the story. And so 4 really, really good stories will get the job done. And so I'm going to put this, here, Amazon LPs, and that falls under behavioral questions in case you want to see it as well. But again, it's really, really simple, yet it's going to have a massive impact. And it's 1, 2, 3 pages long. Do it right away. Get the behavioral questions out. And that way we can start applying immediately within the first week of this program. And your behavioral questions are already taken care of for the next 3, 4, 5 months, right? So, yeah, let me know if there's any questions. I hope that was short and sweet. And, don't overthink it. And make sure you read this example here for the STAR method. And by the way, I do give a lot of more sample questions and answers in case you have any other questions.
12.
And so feel free to kind of take anything
shit.
there as well. But again, the first 3 pages is all you really need.
Gotcha.
But all of this should be able to really bring you to the finish line. So yeah, let me know if there's any questions. Get this done, share with me, or else I cannot help you. And then I'll give you comments and feedbacks, and we'll go from there. Awesome. Later.
So 63. So it says for resources. So personal DA plan. Finish milestone 1. Resume and then update your resume. All right. Finish milestone 3. Behavioral questions. Watch all the videos and follow the instructions in video. Go to ebook chapter page 65. Ace the data engineering video PDF. Do at least 5 questions in a Word or Google Docs. Share on Slack for review. Okay, so ace the data interview PDF. Wow, that's the same shit here. So page 65. Okay, part 6 behavioral, section 14. Section 14, most common behavioral question. Companies ask a variety of behavioral questions. However, they all tend to fall under the same umbrella. Companies tend to gauge your response to see if you would be a good cultural fit. A good cultural fit is someone who aligns with the value and principles that a company has made public. Amazon is a really good example of a company that has shared their leadership principles and does a really good job of asking questions related to them. For this section, we will go over some of the questions typically asked and how to best answer them. Don't forget that concepts apply to any company. Number 1, bias for action. Tell me about a time you took a risk at work. This question is testing to see if you are taking smart and well thought out risks. Amazon is a phrase a lot of other companies have adopted: a one-way door versus a two-way door. A one-way door is a decision that you made that is hard, if not impossible, to reverse, as opposed to a two-way door, which is a decision that is not written in stone. This is part of the risk management and is where bias for action part comes in. Speed matters in business, and companies want to know that you can move fast but intelligently. Additionally, they will look for reasons why you chose this risk and not another. Saying that it is a two-way door is great, but what else? Another thing they want to hear is your business knowledge. They are the inputs and outputs. For example, if you say that the input was 100 hours of engineering time and cost $1 million in AW resources, but output only yields 100K in annual revenue, the company will want to think you assess the risk appropriately. Number 2, disagree and commit. Tell me about a time you disagree with a coworker/manager. Let me start off with how to answer this question. Do not talk negatively about anyone else. You can disagree with someone and still be respectful. You can stay and understand what their thought is, and I spend time understanding the site even better. But according to my analysis on ABC, I thought this was the way to go. What companies want to see is how you go about arguing your side. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing with someone if you do respect and with logic. By logic, I mean data and research. Saying that this message just feels right won't cut it. Finally, there will be times, even if you're right, your manager might not yet trust you and might be insistent on doing it this way. This is where the commit part comes in. Think about a time where you went ahead and committed only to get more information and proof that your method might have been right. Ideally, use this opportunity to revisit your initial suggestion and pivot to try something new. Ownership. Tell me about a time when you went over and above your job responsibility to help the company. Leaders lead by example. Talk about a time when someone on your team couldn't accomplish something. Maybe they were sick, had a lot on their plate, or simply don't know how to do. You stepped up and got the job done. Ownership was about going beyond that you are expected to do and never saying that this is not my job. Talk about how you arrived to do this decision. Did you talk to your manager? If yes, was it something you brought up? Ideally, it was not something your manager had to tell you to do, but rather you took the initiative after having seen something that struck you as worrisome. Why this task over others? Ideally, this task decided to pick up seems like it was either urgent or something you knew you could do rather quickly. Dive deep. Tell me about a time you redesigned a process and why. To redesign a process, one needs to understand the intricacies of that process first. Companies love when they hear you dope deep. Don't be afraid to talk about times where you had to spend weeks reading through boring queries, documentation to figure out something that no one on the team had noticed. Mention that the old design was and how your new proposed design was going to be better, and be ready to go into details if needed. Prioritization. Tell me about a time when you had two deadlines at the same time. How do you manage this situation? This is a classic prioritization question. How does this candidate manage his or her time? How does the candidate decide which task should be completed first? What interviews want to see here is that you weighing the task given many inputs. Maybe one puts the urgency management was showing. Maybe another factor was something that one task was something you already knew how to do quickly, and you knew you could ask your coworker for help on the other task because your coworker knew how to do that task relatively quickly. The trick here is to mention which that you took 10 minutes to really think about which task you should spend your time on. Did you hold a prior to meeting to hear other people's inputs? Was one task more short thinking? Was it long term? Was it possible to push back the deadline for one of those tasks? The way to not answer this question is to say that you pulled an all-nighter to finish both. While this isn't the worst answer in the world, this also what leads to burnout. Companies want to know that they're hiring somebody who can manage their time well enough to not get burnt out and result in a churned employee. Pulling an all-nighter is not sustainable, and frankly, companies don't want to be known as a place where all-nighters are expected and that they will be labeled as toxic. Why XYZ company? The last one is simple. Be authentic. Tell them why you want to work here. It helps if you use the product, but also some research on the culture. What excited you about the company when reading good things about it online? Maybe mention something about your personality, I want to join your company because I am in the startups, but also want to be surrounded by experienced engineers. This company seems to have the best of both worlds. The team I am playing for has a startup vibe. My company XYZ has the resources much bigger. The question is potential, vital, or you can absolutely say nothing wrong things, similar how you shouldn't talk about your coworkers in a bad way. Don't talk about your previous employer or past internship as a negative light either. Don't say it's because of the money either. Companies already know this. Find something that's truly you and don't be afraid to stand out. Makes sense. Star method. As you reread the question and advice above, another thing to keep in mind is the star method. Aside from answering the questions the best way you can, your communications matter. The STAR method is a tactic, helps you streamline your thoughts and give your interviewer a high level response. It stands for situation. Describe the situation at a high level. This is like developing a plot of a movie. Describe who is involved, what the dilemma is, and what your team is trying to accomplish. Task. What goal were you working towards, and what was your individual task? Action. Describe the actions that you personally took. It's no time to be humble. Make sure you use the word I to describe the initiative that you took to accomplish the task at hand. Result. Describe the outcome of your actions. If you can quantify this, even better. Because of my ETL pipeline automation skills, I was able to reduce the amount of time my coworkers spent on manual tasks by 90%. Each section should be 2-3 sentences long. Let the interviewer digest the story you're about to tell them and let them ask you follow-up questions from there. As someone who has interviewed thousands of candidates, I can tell you firsthand that there is nothing more frustrating than to hear someone ramble on for 20 minutes only to have me ask 20 clarifying questions. Practice writing your answer to some of the questions above. Remember, it should come out in about 8 to 12 lines. If you bought the premium one, feel free to email me. Sample questions below. Find the sample question and answer. See if they can come up with your own examples. Follow the STAR method and notice the patterns. Concise and quantifiable stories with a brief overview at the beginning. Oh, this is towards the end. Okay. Below, find some sample questions and answers. See if you can come up with your own examples following the STAR method and notice the patterns. Concise and quantifiable stories with a brief overview at the beginning. Tell me about a time in which you disagreed with a coworker. Anthony not wanting to use Scala. I remember this one time at XYZ, we were in the process of building out this ML model, and I, the other engineer, responsible for building out the pipes that feed into the model. The task was essentially do a bunch of ETL, but as a team, we were seeing that the past code reviews were either in SQL or Python or Scala. Finally, I recommended that we just Scala and use Spark SQL to manipulate the data, but my coworker was very against it, mostly because I think he wasn't as familiar with Scala. After weeks of trying to convince our manager trying to switch over, I proceeded to just pull him aside and show him that the benefits of Scala were and send him documentation and some of the code for him to work off. Someone to reach out to me whenever held and resulted in the team getting synchronized and using one language. Ooh. Tell me about a challenging project, what you did when you needed to motivate a group of individuals to promote collaboration on a particular. At XYZ, my most recent project was regarding evaluating churn rates in our ping program. I did a deep dive and I realized that there was a high number of payment failures causing users to fail when they were supposed to auto-renew. From there, the goal was to build a data set to get more insight and eventually predict ahead of time if it's going to have a payment failure. This was proven harder than I thought because it seemed no one knew where to get payment-related data, and the data that I found seemed very unreliable. I eventually found a few people by going to the random office hours that I thought could help. I organized the meeting between 3 different teams to align where on a source of truth and update stakeholders on his payments failure data set. Finally, the result was that they were able to build a data set that allowed the science team to figure out what the issue was and B, predict the built products to help alleviate payments issue. This led to a massive increase in first month retention from 65% go to 77%. Tell me about a time in which you worked under a tight deadline. How have you leveraged data to develop a strategy? Situation XYZ were in the process of launching Growth Planner Score, our ML model that would generate 90-day sales prediction for every ASIN on a weekly basis. As the DE asked my task to build the entire pipeline, create the features in these models, and set up jobs to run worldwide scale meaning 2 billion plus ASINs. For me, success meant making sure the jobs ran under 8 hours, and 2, keep the costs under our budget of a $3K a month. As a team, success meant 1. Getting a high ASIN coverage, being able to generate a score for 90% of all ASINs. 2. And having a high accurate precision recall when it came to predictions. Action. Our model ML took account variables such as whether ASN had adopted marketing programs such as ads, deals, and A+. I need to understand that the source of truth was from all the teams so we could adjust their data, but one of the teams we were working with, the coupons team, wasn't moving as quickly as we had hoped. I found out that their only data had just taken off for 3 weeks, and so my ownership kicked in and reached out to a friend who knew a friend who used to work on the coupons team and asked him to point me in the right direction. As a result, I was able to use the data, needed to go through a combination of using our data catalog, S3 buckets using our Redshift cluster. It's running at 50% of the time needed and under budget. Specifically, the code team was able to use our source score to recommend which items not to be a coupon on. They reduced our coupon rate of $0 sales from 50 to 30% in just 1 month. It was amazing. When did you take a risk, make a mistake, or fail? How did you respond, and how did you grow from the experience? I was working at the startup, and one of the portfolio managers wanted bond data that was very expensive to buy at Bloomberg. My task was to talk to Bloomberg reps and figure out costs, how the data transfer worked. They said I knew that the data was public online and knew I had the skills to just scrape the data. Now I had other tasks to complete, so I didn't want to waste time much doing this. But I figured it could only take me half a day. It ended up taking me 3 days, and on top of that, it was very buggy. The data was more unreliable. I thought on top of the website metadata was changing. This would break my code. So just me fixing would result in me spending 1, maybe even 2 weeks, something that pushed back our task. I learned that next time, maybe spend time on more scoping and maybe quickly ping my manager the idea that I have. The good news is that this bias correction didn't cost us anything financially. It didn't ruin any existence, but I could have done a better job of scoping. Describe a time you took the lead on a project. This one time I had a one-on-one portfolio manager and it was just to go to know each other better, but she started telling me about her day to day, and I supposed to remember that one test that would take her 30 to 60 minutes a day that was doing manually every day, and she was getting frustrated. Schedule a follow-up, but learn more about this effort. At the time, I had her stuff scheduled on my sprint. From the impression that seemed like something I could help her relatively quickly. I really ran it by a manager and asked me to give 2 hours to help automate this reconciliation process she was doing. I created an S3 bucket where she could drop off file. She kicked off a glue pipeline and would ETL her work. This resulted in having her work get 90% automated, but I went on step by figuring out how to automate the final 10% by pulling attachments from emails and sending an email automatically when a file would drop into S3. This resulted in having the process 100% automated. Tell me about a time when you faced a problem that had a number of possible solutions. What was the problem? How did you determine the course of action? What was the outcome and what choice? Something proud? I have a lot of experience with AWS. I was responsible for building the entire data at the startup. When I first joined the startup, the team was simply running scripts manually on their computer and saving files on an EC2 server. This needed to be ETL'd into a data warehouse, Redshift, but I needed to decide what the best tool to use was. 1, I took the role of moving all that to the cloud and creating pipes. So digging all the systems and processes to startup, doing automated everything. Worked with third-party data vendors to receive data in an FTP server. Use Python scripts within Lambda functions to pull the data out into our data lake, and finally dug in to decide whether to use Airflow or Glue SQL jobs for ETL process. Or Spark to speed up jobs that quants were doing, and finally get everything neat and organized in our data warehouse. I was most proud of the fact that I was able to get 100 plus tables in our data warehouse from 20 different pipelines in about 6 months. And those tables were utilized every week, and I drove a lot of investment decisions that improved our strategy by 20%, but also kept our costs close to zero, while Airflow may have cost us $5,000 a month. Oh, wow. Tough, 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 tough. Oh, wow, I gotta read this thing. these are locked. Data bricks. Oh shit. School is about damn 1.2k. We have damn, I gotta transfer from a template to another template? That's crazy. Oh shit, I gotta watch all that. Damn, bro. I gotta fucking make another template. Oh, the star method. Yeah, I got a star method. Read that. Damn, bro. This is a lot. Holy shit. Okay, so my resume. So I need to do the resume, star method, behavioral. And then resume. Use cruise template. Okay. Okay, so this is, let me get out of Slack here. Make notes. It's 45 minutes, dude. Oh my god.
And that's our. Yeah, I mean, I think you did a good job there. I think.
Oh. Damn.
Hey everyone, so gonna do a quick little video to get you ready and excited for the SQL module. Now, I am gonna preface this. SQL is the most important part of the data engineer interview. If you don't know SQL, this is where I want you to spend most of your time. And so I'm going to go over really quickly where if you don't know SQL, this is where I would go to learn it. And so let me share my screen real quick. So it's called Mode Analytics. Now, let me say this. So as part of the premium package, you should have gotten access to my portal. And so let's see, dataengineeracademy.com. And once you are in, I'm already in, you should be able to go to, it's going to look a little different, but basically it's going to be a SQL module. You'll be able to go to beginner, and then you'll be able to do, your questions. I created questions based on what the company uses data for. And so, for example, if you wanted to, see how to answer this question for Facebook, given below, are the tables of users subscribing to different Facebook groups, et cetera, right? And then you go in
Over
and it's
here,
basically leak
the good
code
stuff, right?
for
So
data engineers and for SQL. Now, some of you might not know what SQL is. That's perfectly fine, or might not know SQL very well. That's perfectly fine, right? If you don't, I highly recommend Mode Analytics, and I'll put this link somewhere so that you can um, find it. But um, I recommend you do basic and intermediate at least. Now, most of you are already going to know it, right? You can kind of, this is nice. So you can quickly know, okay, I already know select, I already know limit, I already know where. That's perfect, right? So no need to really study it. Um, but again, if you know SQL, you can probably skim this in less than an hour. So, why not? But same thing with intermediate, right? Then you kind of get a little more complicated. The joins are really, really important in terms of use subqueries. Use subqueries when you get a chance. Use CTs when you get a chance. Use with statements when you get a chance. But again, this is something that most people know. Um, One thing I highly recommend is uh, making sure you have the right syntax. So select from that kind of stuff, right? They're all capitalized. And so highly recommend you do that and make sure you know that. And so finally, just to wrap up this video, because I wanted it to be short and sweet, in the advanced section, this is where even if you know SQL, you need to brush up on this part. And so, by the way, I've made this so that it's going to look a little different because I'm in the admin panel, but I've made it so that there's beginner, there's intermediate, there's advanced. And so if you really think you're advanced, I would say try doing some of these and then see if you can actually, you know, do them and come up with the right answer. Um, Again, we talked about uh, subqueries, but the part that I really want you to focus on is window functions. I don't want you to focus on dates, date types, date formats, right? You're not going to get points deducted if you don't know the state syntax or you know how to make something a timestamp, something like that. You're not going to get points deducted um, during an interview, and so don't spend too much time there. I, if you're going through one of the questions in the advanced section, part of the reason I do have the solution tab in there is that if you think you have the right answer, but you can't for some reason actually get the correct response, quote unquote, to pop up, like saying like that you're correct, it might just be some dumb date related thing. But what you really want to do is you really want to get the lag and the window functions correct here. And so um, window functions, I highly recommend you do this. This is probably every single person going through this should go through window functions before your interviews, even if you've done SQL for 5 years, because those are probably going to be, especially if you're 5 years or 10 years experienced, you're applying for a senior role, there's almost a 90% chance, if not 100, that you will get some sort of window function question on your interview. So you want to ace that part. Specifically row number, rank, and lag and lead. With those, you'll probably be good. You don't need F tile, but again, mode analytics is really nice because really, if you bunker down and just kind of for a weekend, you can really get all three of these done and over with in one weekend. So that's really nice. But that's again, you should have access to the portal. You should have access to a bunch of questions where you can study up. But if you are looking for some extra material, I recommend Mode Analytics. It's free, it's quick, and if you have any questions, my coaches are very familiar with this, and so we can answer any questions that you might have for us. That's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
Oh my gosh, what is this? Why is it SQL the most important skill? Just doing this right. babe? What is this? So yeah, I guess I don't know what's going on. Why was that like Internet Explorer? That's so weird. Like I did this. There's so many resources, crazy. Alright, well, that's going to conclude that tutorial. I think I'm going to try behavioral questions on the next episode. And I got to give my resume in the correct template. Get that, some feedback. We're going to go over some behavioral stuff. Go over these leadership principles by Amazon. And I'm going to read this thing. This is 72 pages of that. I mean, that's some excess stuff. I mean, you can streamline this stuff and you can do, but man, you go on these side quests. It's crazy. Alright, that's all for right now. Thank you.